What up, roomies? Tonight's guest is someone who's built his life around great experiences, great food, great wine, great travel, and great conversation. Nick Elliot, also known as the Wine Guy, is a sommelier, chef, entrepreneur, world traveler, and the podcast host of Pour and Explore. He spent years working in the hospitality industry, helping people understand wine, food, and the experiences that bring people together around the table. Nick, welcome to Neighbors, man.
Thank you, my friend. Great to see you.
Great to see you as well, and thank you for being on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's my pleasure to be here.
So what's up, man? Talk to me. Before like you got into like the podcasting and all that, let us know who you were, what you was doing and all that, and how you became like the
Yeah.
world traveler and the wine guy.
Yeah, I'll tell you a little bit about the journey. I grew up in Philadelphia, so originally from the East Coast. I live in San Diego, California now, but I was always into hospitality, working in kitchens, in my teenage years. So I decided to go to culinary school, graduated culinary school, and that's really where I was introduced to wine. I was not in a wine family. Growing up in Philly, it was typically Yingling that we would have in our house.
Yeah.
Fell in love with wine, fell in love with food. I chefed for a couple of years and realized that it wasn't for me. And then I got into some other things, but hospitality was definitely in my blood. Fast forward a few more years, I moved to California with my wife. Shortly after we got married, actually directly after we got married, and moved to California and got into the wine business here in California, which is very easy to do. So I literally learned the wine business from the ground up. Planting vines and cultivating grapes, harvesting them, making wine, selling wine eventually after it was ready. Bought a restaurant, the rest is history. I moved to San Diego from Central California about 6 years ago, 7 years ago, and started the Wine Guy business. And I have a great time, man. I love it.
It sounds dope as shit. I'm gonna be completely honest, and especially like, so how did you get into like the hospitality business, and like what exactly pulled you towards wine? Like, because for me, like I've never found a wine that I really like. Like I don't know, maybe my taste buds are funky, or maybe I'm not drinking it right. I don't know, but I've never been like a wine person.
Sure. Yeah, well, to answer your first question, my first foray into the hospitality business was actually working in a kitchen at a nursing home. I think I was 14 years old, 15 years old, something like that. And I really got the taste for, serving people, talking to the residents and so on, bringing them their food and, just having great conversations and so on. And that's, I think, really where it started. From there, I started working in the kitchen of a hospital, which was, kind of an adjacent move, where I worked into actually working in the kitchen on the line, and that's where I really fell in love with cooking, which informed me going to culinary school. So that's the short version, of that story. The wine thing came later, as I mentioned, moving to California, going into the wine business was, it's very easy to do here in California. There's so many wineries all over the place. So I lived in the Monterey area, which is about 2.5 hours south of San Francisco, about 8 hours north of Los Angeles, just to give you geography there. And it, being a hospitality guy, being around the people and serving the wine and serving the food is really something that I love, and I love to this day.
Dope. So like, take us through the process of like actually cultivating your own wine, because you're making your own wine now. So like, how does that actually work out? Like from like plant to like glass.
I could nerd out for hours about that topic, but yeah, as with any good garden, which is essentially
Yeah.
what a vineyard is having the right soil, having enough water, and so on, and finding the right plants. There are 10,000 varieties of grapes in the world,
Oh
wine
man.
grapes. So there are so many different, and they all have, just like you plant certain flowers in this region and you plant certain flowers in this region, grapes are very similar. You have to plant the right grapes for the right region, the right soil, and so on. So we had a lot of help in that. I did not do that myself by any means. I didn't
No,
do
I feel
any of
you.
it by myself. I should say that out loud. Giving props to all of the amazing people that helped do that over the years, and just caring for them, maintaining them, the vines I'm talking about, and giving them a lot of love. They give you a lot of love back, which is
I
big,
feel you.
clusters of grapes, and and that's just the first part of it. Is growing the grapes is just the first part. Then it's the entire process of turning grape juice into wine,
Yeah.
which is, I'm not a scientist. I'm no biochemist. So I learned the hard way, how to make
Through
wine.
trial and error.
Yeah, exactly right. And again, a lot of help, a lot of amazing mentors to help me along the way, and harnessing. I'll just give the audience a quick breakdown of
Yeah.
how wine is made, if you don't mind. It's
Go go ahead, bro. I'm
the
here nerding out with you. I'm super interested.
Awesome. The method of winemaking is through a process called fermentation,
Yeah.
and we've all heard the word, but I don't know if we all necessarily know how it works. I didn't until I got into the process. So fermentation is essentially turning sugar into alcohol. So grape juice has a ton of sugar in it,
Yeah.
natural sugar, not cane sugar. It's a different type of sugar, but it's a sugar.
Yeah.
You add yeast, which is a small micro plant that basically, for lack of a better term, eats the sugar, and it creates alcohol. So it's a chemical process that happens, and it's a natural process. It's something that happens in nature every day. When something dies, when a plant dies, or even an animal dies, they're fermenting. Essentially,
Yeah.
because we all have sugars in us, and plants have sugars in them. So turning sugar into alcohol is how it works, and that's what we're doing. We're just grabbing that process that happens in nature every day, and we're kind of putting it in a bottle, literally, and making sure that we're doing it cleanly and safely and everything to create wine. And wine has been made for 8,000 years.
Yeah.
So people 8,000 years ago figured out a way to ferment grape juice
Give me
and turn it
one
into
second, Nick.
wine. Yep.
Nick, give me one second. Lilian, estoy haciendo algo. Sorry about that. Yeah, you were
Oh, you're
saying?
good. Yeah, that was kind of the end of it. It's been done for a long time, and I'm in the grand scheme of things, I'm a guy who's learned it the most recently.
I
How to
feel
do
you, bro.
it.
So like, what's up with like so like when you do the whole fermentation process, like how long do you have to
Mhm.
like age it before like you're able to like sell it off?
That depends on the wine. So, in the case of a red wine, for example, it's typically aged for much longer than a white wine. So, I would say for red wines, it's typically somewhere between 1 to 4 years that you have to age
Okay.
it before it's ready to be sold. Um, so if you think about going into a grocery store, for example, and this will be a fun little experiment for your audience, go into the grocery store and look at the labels on the wine that's on the shelf, and there's always a year on that label. That's called the vintage. And the year on that label is the year the grapes were picked.
Okay.
So if you look on the labels, you'll see that the red wine labels, they have a lower year on them. So 2021, 2022, 2023, whereas most of the white wines will have more recent years on them, 2024, 2025, because white wine is not aged as long.
Oh, that's dope. So like, how do you make like a good pairing? Like, how do you know when to like drink white wine versus like red wine with like a brunch, lunch, or like a dinner?
Yeah, absolutely. And that topic is actually one of my specialties as a chef and a wine expert. I have, the expertise, if you will, in
Yeah.
wine and food pairing. So the easy way to explain that is red wine with heavier foods, red with steak, red with food with heavy sauces on it, etc., and white wine with lighter food, poultry,
Okay.
fish. And that's very very high level, explanation of wine and food pairing. But my philosophy, the wine guy's philosophy, is you drink what you like. And I say it all the time on my show. If you like red wine with chicken and you enjoy that, that's what you do. That's what
Do
you.
it.
That's the pairing. 100%. If you like white wine with your mushroom covered steaks, you do that too. It's all about enjoying it. It's all about having fun with it. And I never make any bones about someone drinking the wrong quote unquote wine with a meal.
The wrong meal. And what makes like a good wine? Is it like the year? Is it what goes into the wine besides the grapes? What makes like a really good wine?
Yeah, it's that's also a very long answer, but essentially, wine is a natural product. So well, let's go back to meat. We're talking about meat a second ago. What makes a great
Yeah.
steak? A great steak is from a ranch where the cattle are taken care of, where they're
Yeah.
fed well, where they, are just overall taken care of. So I think that's the start of it. Is the as I talked about earlier, taking care of the product from the beginning, making sure that you're giving the grapes what they need, making sure that you're taking care of them in the way they need to be taken care of, and so on. So that's the start of it. That's the base, of it. And then, just like everything else, we have things that affect the grapes. So weather is a big factor, in growing any type of produce. You can have
Yeah.
too much rain, you can have too little rain, you can have too much sun, you can have all kinds of weather patterns happen to the grapes, which will affect the ultimate outcome of the grape itself. uh, Here in California, we deal with a lot of fires, so
Yeah.
forest fires and so on. So
Yeah.
the smoke from forest fires will also affect the quality of a grape.
Okay. And would
So
hold on. Would like
yeah,
something
yeah,
of
yeah.
like like a forest fire, like give the grapes like a more smoky flavor, or
It
would it
will
like?
absolutely do that. Yes.
Okay, okay,
Yeah,
okay,
because what's happening is, the skin of a grape is porous, so the smoke will get into the grape, and it will definitely affect the flavor of it. There have been times over the years, with especially like in 2008,
yeah,
2018, we had some pretty bad fires here in California, and vineyards lost their entire crop because they were tainted with smoke.
yeah. And so a crop could have, so in those cases, like, so what makes like a good year? I guess you would say. That would
Well,
be the term.
it's all of what I just said. Is the weather has to be perfect, the water has to be perfect, it all has to be darn near perfect to get a really, really good year. And then once you get it into the winery, everything also has to go right in the winery.
Yeah,
So the fermentation has to be done correctly, the cleanliness or the sanitation of the winery has to be, spot on. And then once the wine goes into the bottle, it then has to be aged for a certain amount of time, and that all has to go right. So the the perfect year does not come around very often, and that's why certain vintages of wine from different places, certain years of wine from certain places are more sought after than others. So, a Napa County Cabernet Sauvignon from 1985 is very sought after because it was a great year, and so on.
yeah,
Because they were able to capture that lightning in a bottle in that year, and that's what makes it a great year. And not saying that the other years are better or worse, but they're just not the same as
yeah. It
that
doesn't.
particular.
No, I got you. I got you. It's like when a sports team has like a perfect season.
Yes, exactly right. Yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
Everything went well. Everything was in line. People followed the plan. Everything was good. So, quick question: when it comes to like wine flavoring, right? Does that
Mhm.
happen with the grape, or does that happen like when you guys are like doing the fermentation process and all that?
Yeah, great question. So it starts in the grape, just like everything else. As I mentioned at the top of the show, there are 10,000 varieties of grapes, and as you can imagine, each
Mm,
one of those 10,000 varieties has a different flavor profile. So that's where it starts. Then going into the wine making part of it, the type of yeast that you use is going to affect the flavor. The amount of time that you allow it to ferment is going to affect the flavor. Is it going to be sweeter or is it going to be drier? Dry meaning not sweet.
okay.
Then are you putting the finished wine in a stainless steel tank, or are you putting the wine in a wooden barrel, or are you putting the wine in a concrete tank? These are also all going to affect the flavor of the wine. And then finally, you put it in the bottle, and how long do you allow it to age? Is it aged for a year? Is it aged for 4 years? Um, that is also going to ultimately affect the flavor.
Okay, okay. When it comes to like wooden barrels and like the concrete tanks and all that,
Mhm.
what's like the best way to do it? Would it be the wooden barrels, the old school way?
Well, you know, actually, the oldest school way is what are called amphoras, which are actually clay pots.
Oh,
When wine was originally made 8,000 years ago, there were no wooden barrels. They would make clay pots, and they would put the wine in clay pots, and actually, a lot of wineries nowadays actually use clay pots to kind of bring back that retro old school winemaking technique.
oh, that's dope.
So yeah, it really is very cool. It's so. I don't know if there's a right answer to your question. I do prefer my red wine to be aged in a wooden barrel, and I prefer my white wine to be aged in stainless steel. That's my preference. But I know a lot of people, for example, in the country of Italy,
Yeah.
they age a lot of their wines in the concrete tanks, like I was talking about. So that's very standard for Italian wine. That's not very standard for Californian wine.
No, I
So
got you.
it really boils down to the person who's enjoying the wine's preference.
I feel you. I feel you. And I know that you're a world traveler, so
Mhm.
I'm a foodie. You're a foodie, so like, what are like your top three countries that you've been to that you're like, oh my god, is absolutely amazing?
Oh well, I mean, I just said it. Italy is
Okay.
is the mecca, for food. It's I don't think I ever had a bad meal in Italy, and it's just and what I love about Italy, very similar to here in the States, is the food in every region is different. So here in the States, we've got a lot of
Yeah,
barbecue. Originally, we've got a lot of barbecue in the South, a lot of seafood up in the North East. A lot of
yeah,
seafood up in the Northwest, and in between, in the middle, there's a lot of steak and corn and all of that stuff. So regionality plays a lot into food around the world. Um, and it's the same thing in other countries. So in Italy, up in the north, you have a lot of meat and
yeah,
like root vegetables because it's colder in the north than it is in the south. You go to places like Rome and on the Amalfi Coast in Italy, there's a lot of seafood. Because you're right on the ocean, and so on. And then in the middle, there's a lot of grains, and that's where pasta comes from, and tomato
yeah.
sauce, and so on. So every region in Italy that you go to is going to be slightly different from area to area. I'm also a huge French food fan. Same situation. The food in northern France is going to be different than the food in southern France and everywhere else, but it's all amazing and delicious. And then to throw a little bit of a curveball is some of the best food I've had in the world is actually in Costa Rica.
Yeah,
Believe it or not, Costa Rica has amazing. We spend a lot of
yeah.
time. My family spends a lot of time in Latin America, Central America, and we love everything about it. The people, the culture, the weather, especially.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
the weather's
but
amazing.
uh, but the yeah, but the food in Costa Rica is bomb.
Yeah, I know. I've been down to Costa Rica.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
originally from the Dominican Republic, so I know
Oh,
it.
okay, yeah, absolutely,
Yeah,
yeah. I was just in the DR a couple years ago.
DR is the best.
Yes, I
But
agree.
yeah, man. But no, I definitely want to head out to Italy and definitely want to see France. I've yet to have been across the pond, as they say, but
Mhm, mhm.
that's definitely on my list in the next year or two, depending on how my wife and me are, you know, where we at in life.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I totally get it. It's luckily for me, I travel a lot for work, so it's part of
Yeah,
the job. I don't think if I, were not in the situation that I was in, that I'd be able to
yeah.
travel as much as I do, but it works out, thankfully. That's part of my job.
So let us know what like countries has surprised you the most with when it comes to like adventure, food, like and the people, like or when you've been
Oh,
at.
absolutely. Two countries pop into my mind. The first one is Romania.
Okay.
I loved Romania. Amazing country, amazing people, great food, great wine. Um, You don't necessarily think about Romania as a place for wine, but they produce some of Europe's most amazing wines. The country is beautiful. It's
Yeah.
picturesque. The food is awesome. The wine and drinking culture in Romania is a lot of fun. They make a lot of
I'm
brandy in
nice.
Romania. So yeah, so before dinner we have brandy. After dinner we have brandy. For breakfast we have brandy.
Brandy.
Absolutely, yeah. Romania is really really a lot of fun. A great country. If you ever get a chance to go, I would highly recommend it. And then the other country that pops in my mind is Guatemala. Guatemala is the people in Guatemala are the friendliest, kindest, sweetest people in the world that I've come across so far. Just really, really amazing, and the culture is so old and ancient.
Yeah.
The people, and actually, 80% of the people in Guatemala are still of Mayan descent. And
Oh,
they
no.
still have a lot of the Mayan, like outside of Guatemala City,
Yeah.
and Guatemala is a huge country. I mean, not as big as the U.S., but in comparison, it's a huge country in Central America. But um, most of the people in Guatemala are still that indigenous culture, and they
Yeah.
still practice that indigenous culture. They still speak the indigenous languages,
That's
I
cool.
should say. I think there's 23 indigenous languages that they speak in Guatemala, plus
Damn.
Spanish, plus English.
Yeah.
So most people in Guatemala know 3 to 5 to 7 languages. Which is very very cool. Um, the food in Guatemala is awesome. It's simple, but it's awesome.
Yeah.
Using a lot of poultry and fish, root vegetables, and so on. And my biggest surprise,
Yeah.
I'm actually about to do not a whole episode, but I'm going to be talking about this in an upcoming episode of my show, is Guatemalan rum.
Mm.
I had no idea that
I
Guatemalan
had
rum
no.
existed.
You're putting me on right now. Guatemalan rum. It sounds good.
Guatemalan rum is and I'm sorry to say, better than Dominican Republic rum, better than Cuban rum, better than Puerto Rican rum. It is the best rum I've ever had in the world, and I had no idea. It was a total surprise. We were there, and it's, "You want some rum?" "Yeah, sure. Where's it from?" "It's from here." And I tasted it. It's like, "Holy moly, this is the best thing I've ever had."
Mm, nah, believe me, I'll definitely want to try that out. But and then when it comes to like the whole Dominican rum thing, I have no prejudice. Like I like rum. I like I'm more of a dark alcohol kind of guy versus like light alcohol.
Sure, sure,
Like
sure. Yeah, me too.
like tequila. Me and tequila are not friends at all. But give me a good brandy, a good cognac. I'm a okay. I'm a okay
Absolutely,
with that.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I was
So
just in Cognac recently in France and had a beautiful experience in Cognac in France. Yeah, they
so
they amazing stuff.
what's the difference? Isn't cognac just like brandy from that region of France, if I'm not mistaken?
That's exactly right. Yep.
Okay.
So cognac is a brandy, and it starts with wine. So they make wine first
Yeah.
from white grapes. They distill the wine just like they distill vodka, bourbon, tequila, etc. They distill it so it actually takes all of the water out and concentrates the alcohol, and then they age it. Sometimes 4, 5, 10 years to make brandy, to make cognac. And cognac is very specifically from that town in France, Cognac. So Remy Martin, Hennessy are all from that town in France.
Oh, that's dope. And is it something about like the grapes or like the soil that makes like cognac special? Or is it just like a branding thing?
So for about the things were different more than 100 years ago, but for about the last 100 years, they've been using a particular grape in cognac that's actually not French. Um,
Okay.
it's a grape from I just completely forgot where it's from, but they're using a grape called Uni Blanc now. It's UGNI, Uni Blanc. That's what they use to make cognac in cognac. And yeah, so all of that, the soil again, going back to our early conversation, how they're taking care of the grapes, how they ferment the grapes, how they age the grapes, or the not the grapes, the alcohol, how they age it is
Yeah.
definitely going to affect the way it was. I went to the Remy Martin factory distillery in Cognac, which was an amazing experience. And
I believe it.
they took us into the old barrel room where they don't make they don't age it in there any longer, but it's been there since I think the 1400s, something like that. Yeah, they've been doing this for a very very long time, and it just the walls were covered in mold and soot, and then the
Yeah.
barrels, and it was a really really cool experience.
Nah, I believe it because it's like some we don't. All right, as I think as like an American, we don't really appreciate like the process that goes into like our spirits
Yes.
and like just seeing like because I've been to like the Brugal factory in the Dominican Republic and I've been to the Bacardi factory, so I've seen like some of the old timely processes of it just as a tourist.
Yep.
But now that I'm speaking to like a real expert, is like all right, cool, like we need to this takes like a lot of craftsmanship and there's a little bit of science behind it even though so there's a lot of trial and error into it, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up, and you're 100% right. I was just in the liquor store the other day buying a bottle of tequila, and
Ah,
I was looking at some of the prices on that, and my initial reaction was, oh my god, $149, $99,
yeah,
$49, for a bottle of tequila. And that's me, someone who knows how it's made and
yeah,
has been in a tequila factory and so on. And it's surprising. But when you really think about the process, let's go back to wine for a second.
yeah,
You don't snap your fingers and make a bottle of wine. You plant the grapes, you feed the grapes, you water the grapes, you pick the grapes, you bring the grapes in, you ferment the grapes, then it's got to sit for a certain amount of time, going into the bottle. Again, this could be up to a 4 or even a 5+ year process. So to balk at paying $50 for a bottle of wine that took 5 years to make, think
yeah,
about it that way. Tequila, some fine tequilas are aged for a year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. So it's 10 years before you can even put that bottle of tequila on the market. Here in the States, bourbon, most bourbons are aged for 5+ years. So you can start a bourbon company,
yeah.
but it's going to be all of those years in the future until you actually make money. So respecting the process, respecting the craftsmanship, as you put it, I think it is a
Yeah.
great word. To really think about what you're drinking, and it goes beyond getting drunk in my estimation.
No, no, I really do because I feel that when you dedicate more craftsmanship into at least with like heavy alcohol, like hard alcohol, and
Hmm.
brandies and all that.
Yep.
Depending on how how fine they make it and how smooth it is, will also depend how your body's gonna react to it and how your next day is gonna be. You know what I mean?
100%. A great, a great example of that is, like you, I don't drink vodka. Well, first, I don't like it, and B, it has an effect on me. And I've noticed that cheaper vodkas, make me feel worse than more expensive vodkas.
Yeah,
I think it has everything to do with the distillation process, the care that they put into it. I can drink Grey Goose without getting a headache, but I don't. But
yeah.
if I try to drink like what's like Popov or something like that, I'm
Mhm.
absolutely going to wake up with a hangover the next day.
Yeah, yeah. I feel that's how I feel about tequila. You know, man, I don't even want to think about it. Like Patron, doesn't like for me to have like I would have to have like a really good tequila for me to be like, okay, cool. I can have a couple of
Sure.
shots, but nah, I stay away from it all the time.
Well, there's a big controversy in Mexico over the last couple of years that people are putting a lot of companies are putting a lot of additives into their tequila. So the reaction that you might be having might not be to tequila itself. It might be to something that they're actually, that the companies are putting into the tequila. So, I try to buy brands that I know are more discerning about what they put in the bottle.
No, I got you on that. And I don't know, maybe I don't know if like you're up on the controversy, but isn't it like the aren't they saying like a lot of tequila is not like authentic tequila because of like the agave in it or whatnot?
Yeah, that's a big part of it. They're not using blue agave. They're using other different types of agaves, cactuses. And then on top of that, they're putting, different chemicals, flavorings that taste like it but
Yeah.
aren't. So flavored water essentially is what they're putting in to stretch the amount that they're able to produce. So they put all of this junk in it to make more of it, is what they're doing.
Oh man. That's so whack. That is so whack.
Absolutely,
That's
I
sad.
agree.
That's sad because it's like, like if you're I'm just saying like anything you do in life, like once you put that craftsmanship in there, that hard work, that dedication, you don't want to just like start like diluting it by adding like things that shouldn't be in there. And also, if that
Mhm.
controversy comes out, that could that could mess up your whole branding, and essentially, take you out of business.
Yeah, yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if we see some tequila producers go out of business over the next few years because it's going to start coming to light. What they're doing. So only time will tell. We'll see.
We'll see. We'll see. So, in your expertise, can you give us some like really great like wine meal pairings? Or matter of fact, you were a chef. What's it like? Some of your favorite like meals to make, or like what kind of cuisine do you really like to like chef up when it's just like you for yourself or like for the family?
Yeah, it's I don't specialize. Well, I should say this. I have not chefed professionally in a lot of years.
Yeah.
It's been a few years, since I've done that, and I don't have a specialty per se. So I love to cook everything. Um, some of my favorite pairings. Any type of Asian food. So I do a lot of Chinese, like stir fries and so
Okay.
on here at home because they're just easy to do. You chop up some vegetables, you chop up some meat, you cook them really quick. You put in a nice sauce and you put it over rice. It's an easy weekday meal to make and super delicious. And for me, pairing Asian food with rosé wine is one of my favorite things in the world. And it it just does it for me every time. So find a nice dry rosé with some stir fry, or even sushi, or something like that.
Yeah.
Any type of Asian food, Thai curry, it's wonderful with. That's a big one. And at the end of the day, I'm a steak and potatoes guy. Growing up
Hey,
on the East Coast. Yeah.
you already
So
know, baby.
give me a big juicy ribeye steak, cooked over charcoal with a glass of red wine, a glass of Cabernet Sauvignon, or a glass of, actually, my favorite red wine is Pinot Noir. So a
Yeah.
big juicy steak with Pinot Noir is chef's kiss. Absolutely.
Top notch, baby.
Top notch.
Oh man, bro. So like, let me go through my notes. Ooh. So like, what's like some of like the best wine you've ever tried?
So, so I just mentioned Pinot Noir.
Yeah.
Still my favorite to this day. And my love of Pinot Noir started here in the US, but I didn't really know Pinot Noir until I went to France. That's where that wine comes from. It comes from a region of France called Burgundy. And in Burgundy, they grow pretty much all Pinot Noir for the red wines. And I did not know Pinot until I got to France. And my first glass of Pinot Noir in France was like an epiphany. It was just, the angels, sang to me from heaven, and their, with their horns, and all of that stuff. It was just one of the most amazing experiences I've ever had. It can be expensive. Well, not can be expensive. It is expensive. So I don't buy it for myself a whole lot. But when I splurge, my 50th birthday is coming up soon, depending on when this airs. My 50th birthday is going to be in April, and my wife
Happy early
asked me
birthday.
what I wanted. Thank you very much. My wife asked me what I wanted to do for my birthday. Do I want to party? I said no. The only thing I want to do is go out to dinner with you and have a really, really nice bottle of Pinot Noir. That's what I want. That is my birthday wish for myself,
Yeah.
because I love it so much. So that's how I'll be spending my 50th birthday, is with a bottle of amazing French Pinot Noir in front of me.
Hey, there's nothing better than having the love of your life and a great bottle right next to you. You know what I mean?
100%, and I couldn't agree more.
So like, when it comes, are there any like cheap wines that are better than expensive wines, or like how does like the rating goes when it comes to like things of that nature?
Yeah, awesome
Like,
question, Ariel. So it's
can
price.
before you
Go ahead.
answer, right? Can like a $20 bottle of wine like be better than like a 200 or a $300 bottle of wine? Kind of like when it comes to like
The
flavoring and yeah.
the real answer is 100%.
Oh, break this
100
down for me. Break this down for me.
110%. Absolutely, 110%. Price tag on a bottle of wine has nothing to do with the quality of wine. Nothing.
Really?
Zero. Absolutely, 100%. Price tag on a bottle of wine has a lot to do with where it's grown.
Okay.
So I live down here in San Diego. There are some wineries down here in San Diego. Not many, but there are. They exist. Wine from Napa, California is going to be far more expensive than wine from Ramona, California. Just because of the name recognition alone,
Mm.
it's going to be more expensive. So the perception is that wine from this region is better than wine from this region, so we're going to put a higher price tag on this wine over here.
So it's basically
That
like branding.
exactly right. That's the start of it.
Okay.
And then on top of it, you put in what's the word I'm looking for? The availability of a wine, so the amount of a wine that they're producing. So if I'm a wine producer up in Napa and I produce 10,000 bottles of a particular wine,
Yeah.
I'm going to charge this amount of money for it. If I only produce 1,000 bottles of that same wine, I know that I'm going to be able to charge two, three, maybe even four times as much because I only produced a little bit of it and people want it. So it's
Okay.
also a supply and demand thing. So because there is so little supply, there's going to be a higher demand, which means that the producer is going to be able to charge more money for it.
Mm,
So that has a lot to do with it as well. And then on top of it, you then have what are referred to, just like we have cult movies, there are
yeah.
also cult wines out there. And cult wines happen organically in the just in the world. It happens because of the supply and demand. It happens because of a place. Maybe a particular winemaker won an award and got famous, and now wines that they produce are, have more of a cult following. We go over to France, and a lot of times if you put if you put the name Rothschild on
Yeah.
your bottle, if you're legally allowed to put the word Rothschild on your bottle, you can easily charge 10 times as much for that bottle than you can if it didn't have the word Rothschild on it, because the name Rothschild has such a important cultural significance in the wine world that if it bears that name, you're going to charge exorbitant amounts of money for it.
Oh, I
Um,
got you. I got you.
so yeah, so all of these things affect the price. So the easy answer to your question is absolutely no. There could be no quality difference between a $20 bottle of wine and a $2,000 bottle of wine. They could be the exact, and actually, not to go into too much detail, but a lot of times that's exactly what happens. They'll bottle 80% of it and slap this label on it
Yeah.
and charge this amount of money for it. And then they'll take the other 20% and slap another label on it and charge less, but it's actually the same wine. But, I'm airing some dirty little wine secrets right there.
Right. We're
Uh,
not. We don't want to get you in trouble with the wine guys. You are the one
exactly
guy
right. Yeah.
with the wine mafia.
But my everyday wines, the wines that I buy on a
Yeah.
weekly basis are 10, 15, typically under $20.
Okay.
The
Okay.
wines that I drink on a daily basis, and I will splurge from time to time. um, like I said, on my birthday, I'm going to splurge. It's not going to be a $2,000 bottle of wine by any means. It might be, 100 or $150, something like that. Um,
Yeah.
but that's because I know I'm going to like it and I'm likely going to love it. So I'm willing to spend that extra money in that very single instance for myself.
That's dope. That's dope. So it really so pricing in the wine business doesn't really depend on the quality. It's branding and awards and basically the prestige of the vineyard, right?
Yeah.
Is that terminology right?
Yes.
So like
That's a great way to put it.
how does like a vineyard gain like prestige in order to like like sell their wine at a more expensive cost or whatnot? Is it more like scarcity awards?
Yeah, scarcity, absolutely. Awards, most definitely. Maybe they have a famous winemaker. Maybe they brought in a winemaker from France or Italy, and that has a lot of prestige over there. And then they bring in, this person from another country that produces their wine. That will also add, some zeros to the bottom line of their bottle. It also has to do with consistency. Creating consistently good wine over a certain period of time, you know, and in the long term, wines should not be the same every single year. Whereas vodka, tequila,
Yeah,
bourbon, all of those things are going to mostly stay the same. If drink a glass of bourbon that was made 20 years ago versus one that was made of the same brand. I mean,
yeah,
one of my favorite bourbons is Wild Turkey. So if I drink Wild
yeah,
Turkey 10 years ago and Wild Turkey today, it's going to taste the same.
yeah.
That should not be the same with wine. It shouldn't be, but in a lot of cases it is. So being able to produce consistent quality of wine over the years is important, but the wine is not going to taste the same from year to year. There will be subtle differences. Actually, there might even be not so subtle differences in the wine. But as long as the quality is there, does it smell good? Does it taste good? Is it made from this particular grape? Was it aged in this particular type of wood? And so on. So as long as the quality is there and over a certain period of time, that winery is going to gain more prestige over time.
I got you. I got you. Is there any like wines that get like any like wines that taste like horrible or like don't taste that good but are like way too hyped and people like rave over it?
Yeah, it's. I mean, I'm not going to name any names by any means, but they're one of actually the most popular bottle of wine from California. Again, without naming any names, I hate. I won't drink it. I won't buy it. I will never order it at a restaurant, and so on. But that proves my point
Yeah,
is you drink what you like, and they are the most popular. This is the most popular wine in California and probably beyond because so many people like it. So I'm not going to argue with those people,
yeah,
because they like it. That's their preference. It's not my preference. So I think the real answer to your question is it goes back to my motto, which is you drink what you like. And if you like that popular bottle from California, then go for it. I'm not going to make any bones about it. But it's not my preference. And what I think is delicious, just from one of your opening comments,
yeah,
is you're probably not going to like, and that's okay.
yeah. True. I feel you
Yeah.
on that. And what through your experiences, what country produces like some of the best wine?
Consistently produces some of the best wine. Italy, definitely.
Italy?
Consistent flavors, consistent quality across the board. Really, really good. Most of Italy has a very temperate Mediterranean climate, so there's not a lot of fluctuations in temperature or weather, things like that. So they're able to really harness the beautiful weather that they have in Italy and produce consistently good wine. And I would say the same goes for Spain because they've got similar weather to Italy, is just consistently good wine. And believe it or not,
Yeah,
as far as production goes, like gallons of wine produced every year, Spain and Italy go back and forth as number one in production every year. So gallon wise, volume wise, those two countries produce even more than California. California is probably 8 times as big as Italy is.
yeah.
The state of California is bigger than the
Mm,
country of
the
Italy,
country of
and
Italy.
Italy still outproduces California gallon wise in wine every year, every single year. And they produce, and to my point is they produce quality wine.
Okay. So before we go, right, give
Yep.
us. Can you give me like two or three recommendations for like people that are just getting into wine and want something nice to sip on?
Sure. Well, my first recommendation is going to be something that you probably don't expect, and my first recommendation for every wine drinker, whether they're a new wine drinker or not, is don't buy your wine from a grocery store. That is one of my biggest rules, and I say that because there are a lot of things that affect the quality of wine after the wine goes into the bottle, and one of those is the amount of light that it receives. So if you think about a grocery store, is that bottle is going to sit on that shelf and it's going to be under fluorescent light for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, even when the grocery store is closed.
That is
That wine is
a big
going to
fact.
be subjected to light. So the quality of that wine is going to be less than if you buy it at, I mean, go buy it from a local wine shop. Is always my best suggestion. Maybe some of your listeners don't have a wine shop nearby, then it's okay to buy it from a grocery store if that's all you've got.
Yeah.
If you're lucky like me here in California, I can go to a local winery and buy wine, and so on. So that's my first recommendation: is avoid grocery store wine as much as you possibly can. It's also going to be the least quality wine too, because grocery stores are all about margins, so that wine's going to sit there and they're going to pay $5 for it, but they're going to charge
Yep.
you $30 for it, kind of thing. So it's not going to be the best quality stuff either. uh, there are some exceptions, but that's the general rule. um, I always recommend for new wine drinkers to start with sweeter wines.
Right.
um, Sweeter wines go down more easily. And then over time, you can start sampling drier and drier wines, or less sweet wines, as your palate gets used to the flavors in wine. So, some great examples of sweeter wines are Riesling. Riesling is from Germany,
Yep.
but that's where the grape originates from. But we make Riesling here in the States as well. In New York, there's a lot of Riesling. You're in New York, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm in New York
So
City.
there's a lot of Riesling produced in the state of New York. So you can
Oh,
easily get Riesling. And I think that's a really good place to start for folks who are just getting into wine. And if you go to a reputable wine shop, you can go into the wine shop and say, "Hey, wine shop guy, I want something a little bit sweeter," and the wine shop person will point you to the right place. And from my earlier statement, you're not necessarily going to get that same treatment if you go into a grocery store.
definitely not.
Hey, bagger, can you tell me which wine is the sweetest wine over here? No, I can't do that. So you're going to get a little more expertise going into a wine shop, or actually into the winery itself. Liquor stores are another great place to buy wine, because the proprietor of the liquor store is going to know more about their wine selection than if you go to a grocery store. So that's another reason to shop smaller and shop more local as well.
Yeah. All right, Nick.
So go
Any
sweeter. That's great advice.
you heard him? You heard it, roomies. Go sweeter. Try a Riesling. And Nick, any final thoughts or messages to the roomies before we head out?
No, man, I really appreciate being on. It's been a great conversation. You have some really good questions, and I just love dropping some knowledge out there. And if anyone has any questions, please look me up. Hopefully, you're going to throw some information in the show notes, and pop by my website and check it out. Hit me up on social media as well.
Yep, roomies. All his links will be down in the descriptions, so make sure to check him out. If you have any questions for him, head over to his social media and make sure to check out his podcast as well, so that way you could get a little bit more educated on wine and the finer culinary things in life. And remember, roomies, drink responsibly and drink what you like. Peace out.